Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for the likes, the comments, and for subscribing. In this video, I'll be updating you on every girl's dream. Guess what? Dave is devastated without Krisha. Dave goes on a hunger strike to woo Krisha. Already, Krisha left Dave, so Krisha is in their house. But Dave is doing all he can to bring Krisha back. Will he succeed? You need to watch till the end to find out how it happened. Please subscribe to this channel. Let's go. Dave comes to his room and cries, recalling his moment with Krisha. Krisha comes to her parents' house. Her mother asks when she's going back, or is Dave coming? Krisha says, I am not going back. She says, you both won't cry for me. Her mother asks what happened. She tells them about Vamika and her schemes. Dave looks at Krisha's jewelry and cries. He says, I am sorry. He imagines Krisha there and asks him to not cry. She says, my memories will stay with you. Dave says, don't leave me, please. Jaya comes there and says there is no one around. Dave says, I am missing Krisha. Jaya says, I understand your pain, but you can't stop your life. You should meet your office people to distract yourself. Dave says, I don't want to meet anyone. Jaya says, fine, and thinks Vamika needs to understand that Dave is drowning in Krisha's love. We have to focus on our revenge. Krisha tells her father that I have to put my self-respect above everything else. Her mother says, you are not a weak Krisha, but you should give him a chance. Krisha says, no, I have grown up. I am not that Krisha who would wait for her Prince Charming. I am independent now. Yugra, Raghav, and Naina are sitting together. Naina says, I am impressed with Krisha's plan. Yugra says, we have to make our way to the throne. Krisha has left and Dave is broken, so we can own anything we want. Rati hears all that and thinks who will save this family if Krisha is not here. Krisha looks at her wedding ring and says, I don't need this anymore. I will give it back. She puts the ring in the man there and says, you own this now. Dave prays to the Lord and says, I am sorry for all that I did, but bring Krisha back. Dave says, I broke all my promises with Krisha. She kept telling me the truth, but I didn't listen. I know she won't forgive me, so you have to send my message to her. Krisha is leaving the man there, but Hasare gets stuck there, which means indirectly sending Dave's apology. Dave prays to the Lord and says, I will bring Krisha back in my life at any cost. He goes to meet Krisha. Krisha takes the wedding ring and tells her mother that she has to return something. Krisha leaves the house to meet Dave. They are both on the way to meet each other. Krisha's mother messages her to buy groceries. Dave's car passes by Krisha, but he doesn't see her as she goes to the market. Krisha's mother asks her father to tell Krisha to go back. He says, we will not force her to go back. Vamika meets a hitman and gives him Krisha's photo. She says, you have to kill her. Dave arrives at Krisha's parents' house. Her father says Krisha is not here. Dave says, I want to apologize to you both. I failed Krisha's love. I broke her trust, but I love her a lot, and I want to rectify my mistake. Her father says it's Krisha's decision to go back with you or not. Her mother says she has gone to the market. Krisha goes to the market to buy some groceries. She parks her scooty and goes inside. While she keeps hallucinating Devraj in front of her, she gets hyped and moves away from one to another stall. She becomes frustrated and leaves her bag there. She runs away in order to avoid his presence, but then realizes that she is just imagining him. Whereas Devraj also reaches there in order to apologize to Krisha for his mistake. He asks people about her and finds her location. He gets inside the market and questions the vendors about her, whereas one of them gives Krisha's bag to him and tells the direction where she went. Here, Devraj shouts Krisha's name and tries to stop her, but she thinks that she is hallucinating again. She keeps on moving while suddenly Devraj comes in front of her. He stops her and tries to convey his apology when the goons of Vamika arrives there with a van and kidnaps Krisha. She shouts for help, where Devraj gets shocked seeing it. Devraj runs behind the van and tries to save Krisha, whereas the latter keeps trying to get out of the clutches of goons. They hold her hands from both sides and she couldn't do anything. Meanwhile, Devraj somehow stops them and fights with the goons. He beats them and gets successful in saving Krisha, whereas she gets tense seeing his injury and hugs him, but then reminds herself about the situation and moves away from him. Elsewhere, Devraj tries to get Krisha's forgiveness and tells that he is sorry for all the mistakes he made. He insists her to give a last chance to him, but she denies and goes away from there. Her mother tries to convince her to forgive Devraj, but Krisha and her father denies her. Meanwhile, the latter keeps thinking about Devraj. Vamika gets furious at the goons for ruining her plans and then thinks about a solution. She instructs the goons to blame Devraj and sends him to Krisha's house. He tells Krisha that Devraj had asked them to kidnap Krisha so that he can save her and get her forgiveness. Devraj denies all the allegation, but Krisha throws him out of her house. Ahead, Devraj gets back to his palace and screams Vamika's name. He gets suspicious about her and blames her for trying to create rift in between Krisha and him. He warns her and declares that he won't show any mercy towards her, whereas she tries to act innocent in front of him. As he leaves from there, Jaya confronts Vamika. Vamika accepts her crime in front of Jaya. While the latter gets furious at her, she asks her to focus on their revenge and declares that they have to take their revenge from Devraj by torturing him. She gives a last warning to Vamika and goes away from there, while the latter smirks and determines to get Devraj anyhow. Further, Rati visits Krisha and the latter gets happy seeing her. Rati sees that Krisha is missing Devraj and tells her that he is also miserable without her. Krisha tells about the fake kidnapping plan of Devraj, but Rati denies to believe it. She says that there is someone who is trying to break their relationship, whereas Krisha reminds Rati that how easily Devraj has given her divorce and declares that he doesn't value their marriage. Rati insists Krisha to give one chance to Devraj, but Krisha declines. Dave sits in Krisha's garden and starts singing. Krisha glares at him, but her mother goes to him and dances with Dave. Rati is watching his live video when Vamika comes there and breaks her phone. Rati says, "You can't change the truth." Vamika says, "But I can manipulate it." Krisha tries to ignore Dave, but he keeps singing for her. Krisha comes there and asks all servants and people to leave from there. They all do. Dave says, "Thank God you at least came out." Krisha says, "If you don't leave, then I will call the police." Dave says, "I know you have something else in your heart." Krisha says to stop creating a scene. She leaves from there. Jaya tells Vamika, "I have a surprise for you." She brings her to Raghav, who is brought into the house by some men as he is severely injured. Jaya says, "He tried to trap my daughter, so I had to break his legs." She runs to him and asks what happened. Raghav glares at Vamika and says, "I had an accident." Yugra says, "We don't have a good time, but we will have our time soon." Raghav glares at Vamika and leaves from there. Jaya tells Vamika that nothing is more important than you for me. That's why I want you to stop running after Dave. He will come running to you. I will use political power to bring him to you. I want to rule this whole city. And you remember that nobody loves you more than your mother. Vamika looks on. Krisha gets Rati's message that Dave is winning hearts on social media, but I want him to win your heart. Krisha watches his video on social media and says he wants to be a hero. She is in the kitchen and suddenly a cloth catches fire. Krisha stops the fire and says my decision was right to keep Dave away from me because I don't want him to get hurt because of me. Krisha calls Rati and asks her to bring Dave back home. He can't stay here as he might get hurt. I saw a dream in which a barber asked me to protect my husband. Rati says, but you both are each other's support. You should stay with him. Krisha says, no one is on my side. She ends the call. Dave talks to Krisha's mother and says, I won't eat or drink anything till Krisha comes back with me. Krisha comes there and says, I am not coming back with you. She takes her mother from there. Her mother says, he won't go from here. He will stay hungry. Krisha says, let him be, but don't go to him. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe and come back for more updates from your favorite Z Word series.